Hello and welcome to the channel. This is episode 13, I believe, of the More Than Human Conversations, lucky number 13, here with Bryce. He told me it could happen, and so it did. So Bryce, if you want to give a little self-introduction in case anybody that's on this channel hasn't heard of you.
I know you're not sick of me yet. I don't know how, but yeah, I run Shelf Centered. I focus on fantasy, science fiction. I also say sometimes horror. I'm getting into my horror. It's been enjoying, or I've been enjoying it quite a bit. So yeah, just talk. I do book reviews, lists of stuff, top 10 list. I did a top 100 list of top fantasy.
Yeah.
I actually just started working on my top 100 sci-fi. So it's a little hard. Like it's more. I'm gonna have to split things up. I couldn't just do straight series like I did with my fantasy one.
Oh yeah. I'm the same way. I when you started doing that, I'm like, man, that's a big undertaking.
It took some time. That's why I was like, I better start now so I could maybe get it started by the time I could finish it by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the top 100 list will probably be next year for me. But yeah, you did it, and then I don't know if Tony had already had the thing, but then Tony was running it, a couple months after you started. And I'm like, it's not like that's the type of thing I would love to do, but like I said, it's like that's a big undertaking to make sure you're like and then if you're reading a new book and it's like, well, that would have been on the list.
It's a list that it's you can never actually narrow it down. You kind of have to just at one point go, look, I'll give myself the grace to know that I can do this again someday. It's okay. Yeah. I'll have to revise it.
Hey, you're not late. Just made it. Yeah. So I like to ask everybody the same question. Is like, who got you into reading, and how that journey start for you?
Yeah, I mean, I probably have to say my mom. She was always reading, always, constantly reading. I had good friends that I remember in being in elementary school, and we'd be racing through books. Who does that?
Yeah, that would be fun.
I remember friends and we picked up the My Teacher Fried My Brain series by Bruce Cavill. And so we were like, it's just this middle grade series and it's perfect for kids, we were just kids, anyway, it just, it's your teacher is an actual alien and stuff like that. I was like, what if? And so, but that, at the same time, I'm never sure what came first, but I remember Narnia, during those early years and just falling into those worlds and being like, wow, this is so cool. But I kind of say that I had 3 starts basically into reading.
All right.
Because then there was then another just a huge gap until the Lord of the Rings movies came out. And then, I watched the first one and I was like, this is amazing. Best thing ever. I cannot believe this exists. And then I also was like, and I can get an ending here in the next couple months instead of having to wait till the next movies. So I remember just blazing through those. I was in high school at that point. But again, blazed through them, loved it, absolutely fell in love with reading. But again, had another break until really it was college. My sophomore year, I think I had this really good friend that gave me it was just had his huge stack of books and I was like, this is cool, this is kind of and I remember dragon stuff and all that, and he gave me, it was Melanie Ron's Dragon Prince, and then I just loved that series. And so anyway, and then after that he gave me Game of Thrones and was just like, I'm jealous that you get to read this for the first time because I wish I could do it again. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's how I feel every time somebody new starts the Dresden journey. I'm like, to be back. No,
my paralegal, she's just was just like, hey, you know, you guys, you do this thing, and she calls me a micro influencer. I'm like, it's pretty funny. And so I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. It's like very low key.
There's some people, you get to
There's
some people.
tiny influencer. So she picked up Dresden Files and already is on book 2 and midway through and like loving them. And I'm like, yes, I did it. Every time that feeling never goes away. You know, it never gets less cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's I think like being in booktube, I think that's the like when you were just a reader, the feeling was like, oh man, I have this is so cool. Like I can't, you know, especially if it's a big book series, you're just going through them. And then once you're a booktuber, it's kind of like what you said. It's like when you're like telling people you should read this, and then they go, yeah, it's awesome, and you're like, yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, you're like, yes, one more to the bandwagon.
Yeah, it's so true. And especially because Dresden's not like, there's a lot where I go, because with Dresden I go, look, it gets better, but it's fun at first, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot I go, it gets better by like the 3rd book. You gotta push through, and you hate giving that recommendation.
Yeah,
you give heads up. But at least with Dresden, you can just be like, look, the first couple are just pure fun popcorn, just have fun, and then they start getting like, whoa, this world is crazy huge and all kinds of fun.
I tend for Dresden, I tend to give people the old you know, it's going to be the forest for the trees. At first, you're walking up to the forest and you're just like, oh, there's a lot of books and stuff. But like you said, it's mostly fun. It's like, oh, okay. And you just start walking through the forest. And then all of a sudden you're like, you look up like halfway through this and you're like, am I in an epic fantasy here?
Yeah,
like,
it's so true. You're like,
did I get snuck into an epic fantasy? Like the world becomes so big and so many characters.
Oh yeah, he snuck you right in, and suddenly, just the stakes are like huge and like world defining and all that.
Yeah, you would have never thought when you first started it, like it's just a wizard detective trying to go on a date and it's not working out. You know, it's the most embarrassing thing that you can think of. You know, a big dorky guy. You know. But then, like you said, like you would have never thought from that to Battlegrounds. You're like, what?
Especially like changes, and you're like, what?
Well, you know, and with you said, if I remember correctly, you were in like a blog group, and you had access to like, you know, some pretty cool, you know, ARC copies and stuff like that back in the day.
Yeah. So I started, back in the day. I was literally in law school. Like I didn't have enough reading on but like one of the reasons I even went to law school was because I was like, I like reading, and it was like, let's make sure that I will hate reading. So that's kind of
let's burn out as fast as possible.
Yeah. So I'm one of the few. There are plenty, you know, there's plenty, but there's not that many. It's most have like burned it out of them, but I still read for pleasure and not just the pain of my ordinary existence. But I remember just being like, I could do a blog, and like, I see this, you know, I was just addicted to blogs in the way that I am currently addicted to BookTube. It just exchanged one for the other. And so I was like, I could do this, you know, one of those things. And so I started doing my own, and then, you know, and it becomes very fun to like, and I still have some of those connections. So like Tor, I was able to be like, I want that. And they were like, here you go. And so, you know, so I can still kind of sometimes pull that. And now I'm back to, you know, where I don't know, that blog, it did okay. And it was, you know, but again, I let it die for the most part. And, but it was fun, but it is fun to get those advanced review copies. I did get a copy of The Way of Kings when it first came out, and so
I remember hearing you say that. I was like, "That's pretty sweet."
I've had some offers for it too, and I'm like, "No, this is my baby."
Like, it's a pre-copy.
The funny part is like it's a well-read version of it too. Like I read it, like that's how I read it because I was trying to make sure and read it before the book came out. So,
see, I used to do that back in the day when I worked for, I don't know if they were out in your area, but it's called it was called Movie Gallery. And it was like the #2 competitor to Blockbuster back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And that was my first job. And we would get the movies the Tuesday before, because all the movies and stuff came out on Tuesdays. Actually, we would get the Wednesday before, so we had it for 6 days.
Oh, wow.
And I would get like video games, and I would try to beat the games before they hit the market, and just be like,
cool.
"Hey, check this out!" Like the original BioShock. I beat it before it hit shelves, and I was telling everybody. You know, I would.
There's a certain like, look, this is pretty cool. Like, I'm pretty dope for this.
Yeah. I mean, I was what the authors call them now, like ARC teams. I would have been like the perfect ARC person for the video games, because I was like, you've never seen a game like BioShock before. It ain't even out yet, and I already beat the dang thing. Like, it's like the best writing in any game. I still say that. I still say the original BioShock, the best writing in any video game.
Oh, man. Okay, I need to check that out, because that sounds awesome. I love taking those, like, because I just feel like, I don't know, the old, like, with video games these days, like, I get frustrated with the constant like cutaways, and you're just like, am I like, did I come in for a movie or like an actual like game here?
Yeah.
And I get like people love them and whatever, and they're great, and they're amazing. But like, for me, I love those just like great kind of classics, just for some of those reasons. Like, look, writing and stuff's cool, and cool gameplay at the same time. You actually get to interact with it a little more. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I need a game more.
Yeah, I don't. Nathan, my best friend, he gets on me all the time, because he's like, "Oh, you got to play this game. You got to play that game." I'm like, I do not have time. Like, I was like, most of my video game playing now is like Madden or something I can step into real quick. It doesn't take brain power. I'm not like trying to because like if you're playing like a Witcher 3 or a Skyrim, you can't just play that game for an hour and then pick it up 2 days later. It's like you're gonna be like, where was I? Where was I headed to?
Oh yeah. Not to mention just like use of the powers and the things and the whatever you're picking up and whatever. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, heck, I remember in Skyrim, some of those missions that you go on, the missions are like 2 hours long. It's like, yeah, that would take one mission, and then it's like, oh, shut it down. It's like, it's so hard to do that nowadays.
I know. I was going to say, can you finish a whole game in 6 days now?
Not a chance.
Now that you had to enter the real world like an adult, it sucks.
Adulting, the worst. Yeah. So yeah, one thing. I mean, we've been on so many videos together and stuff, but one thing I've wanted to ask you is, how does, and you were talking about it a little bit, how does being a lawyer like factor in to how you read books and stuff? And because I asked Sarah about this, and she's a psychologist and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, do you break down characters and like everything? And like for you, like when they're going over like law and stuff like that, are you like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or are you like, this guy actually did research? Like,
right. I do try to tune that kind of stuff out. I know I drive like my wife nuts when I'll be like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. There was a show, it was like The Good Wife or something, and they're like, guys, this mediator, like, you don't want to get on his bad side. He's like crazy and all that. Like, oh, we got to make sure and you do everything great for the mediator. I'm like, for the mediator, like the guy that has zero authority over your case and like just helps you solve it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
I love it.
Like, you still like treat him with respect. I'm not saying like, but it was just like, they're not the judge. Like, what are you talking about? But anyway, no. So there's plenty of like, rough stuff, I guess, when it comes to the law. Luckily, like fantasy they're either like low key, like not much law, or the law is like whatever this guy says, because he's luckily there's low key that. The other thing is like, I kind of use my pleasure reading time just to like escape all the nonsense and to get my mind, like literally to like flip the switch in my brain so that I can even like sleep at night. Or like otherwise I'm up like thinking, oh man, did I get the discovery done for the guy that is that due by tomorrow or is it next week? And it's just like this constant, just all like, I hate all the deadlines that I have as a lawyer, but at the same time, I can acknowledge that nothing would get done if there weren't deadlines. So, but I kind of, I feel like there's some analysis where I'm definitely more critical than I used to be with my reading on certain things, but I do, for the most part, I'm trying to like actively get away from that kind of thinking and get into the whole realm of just, okay, literally pure escapism to some degree, to just get away, get my mind on other things. At the same time, I mean, I was just on Joanna's channel, like talking about why read, and I do love like a good like challenge your morals, kind of book, like what makes you tick, and if you aren't addressing what your literally what your morality is ahead of time, and an event comes to you, it's not going to wait for you to decide, what how do I feel morally about this. So I do love the fantasy. I feel like more than a lot of different kind of genres, really, like it kind of go like it puts like turns it to 11, right? And as far as like they can really give you a good moral quandary here, and a real good thought process, and make you have to think and have to address like, well, what do I believe about this? So I do like that too, but again, I like thinking about those things, but again, and it's still just apart from like division of maybe like a Severance situation. That's one of my that is a show I've kept up on, and that's awesome. Like trying to sever the two.
Well, yeah, that's a good thing. Like when my friend was telling me about Severance, he's like, would you do this, man? Like his whole thought process is like, oh, you're killing the other person or whatever. Spoiler alert for a show that's been out for 2 years.
It kind of isn't though, because it's like addressed right away.
Yeah. They tell you exactly what the premise of the show is right off the bat. But like, yeah, my thought process on that whole thing is, why wouldn't you do it? Like, especially if they're paying you really good money. It's like, I mean, you don't have the stress of work.
I know.
It's over. Like you come home, I just get to just chill, like, but yeah, I understand. Like that show is very deep. Like, what are your thoughts on that? That's a good question.
I know, no, and that's the thing. That's why I bring that up, because I'm like, it still has me thinking, and I'm like dying for the next season because it's so good. Anyway, I love that show, and it was like, I mean, just from the silly, like you get this reward of the dancing and whatever. It's like, anyway, there's so many cool things
going on here.
It's so strange, but yeah, I have thought. I mean, the problem is, and you wouldn't have this hindsight. I mean, I guess now we do, but like, without this show, like, let's say you're offered that, I think it would be like a no brainer. Like, oh yeah, like I get to sever myself from like, I don't even have to think about work, like, and just literally like my outside of work time is just pure awesome, and
it's just me.
Yeah, like all it is like I don't even have to worry about anything. It's just the paste like comes in. But like if you really like having like watched it and going, okay, like like these implications, like I hadn't even thought. Like I love how they explore the idea, like so much, right? It's not even too much. Like it feels like you might be like, oh, that's like you like really went all in on this, and it's like I love how they like really get into the details of like, what would it be like for literally it'd be a whole different person. It wouldn't even be you, but it is you. Like you both utilizing the same body essentially, and it could, I mean, they could be torturing you, they could be whatever.
You wouldn't have any idea.
You would have no clue. I just, anyway, it's so thought-provoking. I'm like, knowing what we know now, I probably would have to say no, but like if I were given like this, oh yeah, I mean that sounds pretty good.
Well, and those are the type of shows that I've found myself more drawn to over the years. I don't know if it's because I read a lot more now, or because I used to watch tons and tons of shows and movies, but yeah, things with weird premises have become like my go-to thing. I'm like, people will tell me about a book and they'll be like, oh yeah, it does this and does that. It's weird, but it, I was like, okay, weird. Tell me. Well, what is more weird? What's weird about it? Because I want some, I guess I'm trying to find new premises and new things to, because I mean, it's fun to just have your random normal epic fantasy series, but like, like I did a list the other day, and I was talking about Empire of the Wolf, and it's most people would generally be like, oh, it's your classic kind of grimdark epic fantasy. But the way it's told from like his sidekick's perspective. And I'm like, okay, that just something a little different. I don't know. Is that something that's kind of, been in your head, like thinking about like trying to find just the little weird things?
Oh man, it's funny. That's what I literally, it's been kind of almost a theme on my channel to like, I'll bring it up sometimes, not all the time, but I will just be like, I don't know. There's something about just, it just cause it'll be like unique. If it's weird, it's unique. And I like that. And I'm like striving to get more of that. But even like, I thought I knew it, and then we just read it, and I was like, that was one of my favorite books, like of all time. Like it was so good. And like, but it's also super weird and way different in the book than like the movies even able to like get to, And like I even I went and followed up and watched the like new one, and it was like, they cut out like so much exactly. And like kind of jumped into some things and changed even. I actually liked one of the changes. I mean, it's a total spoiler, so I do anyway, but just let's say let's just that Bill doesn't cheat on his wife. I liked that was a good change in the movie.
Well, and I've had people message me about our discussion and everything, and I'm just like, there was so much more to a book when we didn't talk about the main bad guy until there was 10 minutes left of the 2-hour discussion or whatever, or hour and something discussion, because that book was so deep, and like I've been like randomly giving that link to our discussion on it out to just anybody, because I'm like, anybody who talks, I'm like this was probably one of the best like discussions we've ever had about a book. Fun. It was so deep. Like I could never imagine when we started that book that it was going to be like so much like family trauma and like from the movies, like you kind of get there's definitely that in the movies, but it is like the main theme of the book. It like Pennywise is not, to me, is not the main theme of the book at all.
Yeah. Well, that's what you and Sarah really bring, that like you get it to, above just the basics. So that was really great. But and that's one of those things that I love and that I've learned to love. Like, I don't think I would have loved as much as I do now, but just where King does such a good job of just making these characters so real. And so you're just you're part of their lives now as a reader. And that's just so impressive to me. I mean, I used to read for like the dragons and the action and the, the sword fighting and stuff. And then it's like, oh my gosh, these are real people. Like they could be your friend, and you kind of go, I got to give some people some like a little bit of like, leeway here, because they've been through some stuff. Who knows what they've been through, but they're not sharing it right now. And they've all been through it though.
Yeah. I mean, one, like I said, just hearing you and Sarah go back and forth, because like you kind of deal with a lot of the situations. Like
maybe I have to read to get them out of my head.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the other reasons why I was kind of asking you, like, how does your job kind of affect your reading? Because like you and Sarah were going back and forth because you kind of both did on different sides of the issue, but you deal with a lot of that. Like, were you thinking about that a lot while you were reading the book, or was that a hindsight thing? Once you finished it, you started thinking about it?
Well, yeah, the whole time it was like, man, either King is experiences stuff personally, or he knows people, or he's just that good of a writer. Probably a combination. But it was the whole time was just like, like this is it. And like certain reactions, like the people that will just trigger them in your day-to-day life, like that's why I'm like, it gives you just that perspective of like, you got to give people some grace here to just like be human. We're all screwed up somehow, and be able to be like, look, maybe they did me wrong there, but was that all just because of them? Was it, is
Yeah.
there something underlying that? Because,
Factors.
yeah, that's why I was just like so amazed at what King can do or could put together, because it was like, no, these are like real trauma things. Like, and that's the thing too, is you get like, you grow up, like I talked about Narnia, right? Or Harry Potter, or some of these where, and why I like The Magicians by Lev Grossman.
Yeah.
That one takes like, hey, if you went through something like this crazy, like in Narnia, let's take it, like, you get to go to this magical land, but you have to go through kind of like this really hard, like craziness, like your brother almost gets turned to stone, your whole family almost gets turned to stone, like, but then you like save the day, you're able to become like kings or whatever, princes and princesses, and then they like lose it, right? I'm sorry if I'm spoiling Narnia for you.
Don't spoil an 80-year-old story. How dare you?
But then, because I remember as just a reader being like, oh, and they just became kids again. Like after all that, like what? Like you just lost that whole like perfect, like, like that's trauma too. Like that's tragedy, right? To like be at the highest and then lose,
Kind
that.
of reminds me of Peter Pan or Hook.
Right.
Kind of like he was there and then he left, and then it all.
Well, and then like Harry Potter, like, hey, we just went through some like crazy stuff with Voldemort like last year, and like let's go back to school. I can't wait. It's my favorite place to be. And yet, like, there's some that make sense because he's with Dursleys and all that, but at the same time, you're going, wouldn't these things like mess you up for life? Like, if you're being real about it, right? And that's what I like about The Magicians, is like it handles like, what if you did do the Narnia thing or the Harry Potter thing, but then like you actually were human, like you had actual PTSD or something.
Yeah, how bad would it be?
Like how you like dealing with the trauma. And so that's what I think like King again does, and where it's so believable, where what Stanley Uris does right off the bat, right? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, no, I mean, when you get to know it, you're like, yep, that makes sense. Like that's a response.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think King does that so well. I know Mike from Mike's Book Reviews talks about it all the time, about how like he's like the master of coming of age stories.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, King straddles that your traditional literature and fantasy, like all his stories, even like Carrie, his original book, it's like, yeah, there's supernatural stuff to it, but that's not the main juxt of it. It's her relationship with her mother, and then how that affect, and like kind of like you said, like things cause people to do other things. It's not just an isolated incident. So like, with her, it's like, well, her relationship with her mother, then her not being able to trust friends, and then when she does, they do things to her, and then it's like, and then it all blows up, and then it's like, yeah, King is really, really good about like knowing how, kind of like always the reason I like DC more than Marvel, because it's like closer to reality, almost like The Boys. Like The Boys is really how superheroes would be if they were real.
That's true.
Right? You'd have people just getting randomly killed accidentally or on purpose. And that's
it'd be even the good guys, like, because you just. Because I always think through my head of like, even just to open a door without just like removing the whole thing.
Yeah.
To have that kind of strength control to like only open a door, like nobody's thinking through that to that level, whatever. But it like,
yeah, it has to be a thing, right? Yeah, for the character. Well, it's like, what was the old saying for Superman? He lives in a cardboard world.
Yeah,
where it's like, yeah, every time he touches the door, he has to purposely like dampen his power to like barely open the door like a human being and stuff, instead of just ripping the door off the hinges every time he walks through.
And I think of like a kid, only has 100 miles per hour or 0, right? And like, so if you have that, then you're only going to be destroying everything.
Oh, have you ever seen Brightburn?
Yeah. The Will Smith one, right? Is that?
No. Brightburn is the it's the kind of retelling of Superman as the the horror story of the kid?
Still feel like I might have, but maybe I haven't, because I was thinking through what was that one. Yeah. Anyway, no, I guess I haven't. I might have to add this to my list.
Yeah, but yeah, it's basically like, and I don't know how they got away with it, because it is a carbon copy of the origin story of Superman. You know, this kid acting kind of strangely. Then you find out that that their parents in their barn have a spaceship that he came with, but then the kid is acting like a normal 12-year-old kid that has hissy fits. But if you're as strong as Superman and you have a hissy fit, bad things are going to happen.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I remember. Okay, I remember seeing it. Yeah, I have not seen it. It's Elizabeth Banks was in it. That's the one. Okay, I had to look it up. I had to be like, okay, that's
and then the dad is the one of the guys from The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy from the warehouse, the secretary's first boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the dad.
He's pretty good in what was it, 13 Hours? I was like, okay, he's
but yeah, it's so crazy to think about how, like you said, like people, we don't normally think about it. So when you see movies like that, you're like, yeah, that's probably how it would go down if you had a 12-year-old Superman. Like it would just, you'd make him mad. Like, how are you going to discipline him? What are you going to like? I mean, how many kids do you have?
4.
You got 4 kids. So I was just about to ask you, I'm like, how do you keep, 4 regular kids in line?
Oh, yeah. No, I know. And that's one thing, like, I mean, just working, like my oldest is my son and then the rest are girls. And or my daughter, daughters. I'm like, why am I using different wording for them? Because I'm weirdo. But no, a lot of it is always like we've just been like him being like the oldest, and you're like, look, you are strong. You are like way stronger than them, and it's so unfair the way, like, I get it, how we are like treating him compared to them, like, and it's frustrating.
But it's a thing,
I get that, but it is also at the same time, it's like you gotta, like, you don't know like your strength.
Yeah, man. There's reality,
like a mini version of like Superman though, like where it's like you can't just like go off on them because they will get seriously injured. Whereas like if they go off on you, which again I like, super not fair. We have to be like, stop you first, no matter what it is, and then we'll talk to them. But it's like, dude, like he's just like, oh, like the injustice of this, like what the heck? Like they're the ones that are doing all the junk, and I'm just defending myself. And you're like, I know, yeah, you're 100% right. I'm sorry, but then why are you like, it only sees like but you're attacking me.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we'll get to them. We just got to like deal with like the safety issue first.
Yeah. It's like we got to stop the juggernaut first, and then we can deal with the crowd.
Yeah. So, and it's like, it's so hard. But again, little taste of that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah. So how did you first, like, because I know you came from the blogging sphere. How did the whole booktube thing come to fruition for you?
Oh man, well I think and probably mostly spurred because of the blogging. Like it was just like, this is just blogging with your face.
Yeah, video.
Yeah, so it's like I could do that maybe, I did that before and I made that work, and so I could do it with my face. So yeah, no, just like watching like Daniel Green and then Mike's book reviews. Those are like my weigh in, and then they bring up like Philip Chase and Sarah Reed's. Actually, those it was fun to be on with her the other day when I was like, she was one of the very first booktubers that I was ever following, and but just seeing them, and then you try to do it and you're like, oh, they're really good at this. How do they do so well? I cannot get to that level. So, you're like, wow. Anyway, you're like, because again, they make it look so easy.
Yeah,
that's one thing, somebody's good at something.
Yeah, there's several of them where you're just like, man, you guys were just good from the get-go.
No, right?
Like, and I'll see some people who just start, and it's like I'm like, man, they got the camera right, the lighting, they got the night, and they know how to talk. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, these people got to be in public life somewhere, like to be this good right out the gate.
Right. Yeah. The one thing I was like, and maybe I've done too much because I've kind of gotten more scripted than when I started, but it was just like, I could talk. I'm a lawyer. I could talk. Like,
yeah.
But then I learned it would just be like, I would talk forever on some random thing nobody really cares about. Then it's like the actual opinions people cared about it kind of like get glossed over a little more because you're like, well, now it's been 20 minutes. Moving on.
You're like, well, we talked about the curtains for about 15 minutes. Let's get to the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. But like what were, because I haven't looked at some like what were like the first videos that you like, was there a book series or something that you just really wanted to talk about that kind of got you to start it? Or
what's funny is I kind of just was like, my first one was like, hey, what do I like talking about? Well, I love going through my bookcase and like talking about like looking at my books and talk about it. So I just kind of was like, favorite books in my collection.
Okay, yeah, that's a good
like randomly grabbed stuff. Yeah. I would there was an attempt to like not just do what everyone was doing, but it's like hard not to. I mean, there's only so much, I guess, with books. But then you kind of like soon realize like I can just put my own spin to some of the same topics that other people do. Hence why I do the news. I always did kind of a news thing for the blog, so it wasn't anything really that different like from my blogging days to do the news. And like Daniel Green does a great job of it, and like basically Mike does with his updates. And so I kind of played with, all right, I can't really like I don't read fast enough to do a weekly update. Like I tried it at first. We'd be like, I am a little bit further in the book that we talked about last time.
Dude, like I tried to do a news thing like twice. And I had planned, I was like, okay, I got a special thumbnail. I was gonna do a play on like the Colbert Report for back in the day. I was gonna do like a play on that, but it like, yeah, like you said, you really have to be like in tune to exactly what's going on to do some kind of like weekly show. And it's like, I got too many things from reading to work to, stuff going on with the kid, football season and everything. I can't get enough, for a weekly thing. But yeah, the fantasy show that Daniel Green, his fantasy news, that used to be my go-to thing. Dude, and like not blowing smoke, but like, yeah, I watch your fantasy stuff every time. Like some of the stuff that I'd heard, like, oh yeah, I got that through the grapevine too. But like I watch yours more than I watch his, unless he's got something like weird, special, like exclusive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and he's got great. I mean, he has great takes, and I don't always agree with him, but it's always like I respect it. It's like that's my profession, is just to like, I don't agree with you. Here's my take on it.
I gotta get. You know what? I've been wanting. It's weird, like you said, like you don't want to fall into doing the same thing that everybody else does, but like sometimes it's just like you're on BookTube. There's certain things that you're just gonna have to do, or you're gonna be thinking about like weird ideas constantly.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot. I mean, that's the thing is, I wish I could even just keep up on filming all the things that I want to do. Yeah. And it's just like I'd love to do like weekly reviews along with the news, with whatever it is, even if it's shorter news, just get something that's just more talking, or just topics, and or even do like what you're doing. I love this. I'd love to do like a live stream, kind of sit down, and but it's always just like the time constraints,
Well, and I think everybody's pulling you onto their lives. It's gonna be hard for you to get.
That's my favorite thing to do. I love it. So I'm like, great.
It's so funny. There was like a week where you were on like 5 live like every time I turned around, I'm like, Bryce, you were like the Sanderson of live streams there for a second. It's like every day I turn around, he's like, oh, he's on with Jenny Warts. He's on with Steven Erickson today. He's over on Mike's. I'm like, Bryce is everywhere.
Oh man, that was so fun. I know, and that's the thing is like this is like the best part about it is just like meeting friends over like like half a continent away, you know, like talking about like what we love to do and read and the topics. And because this is the thing, this is what I'm thinking about, right? This is what and it's fun to like, I'm firmly of the belief too, is like, unless you've like chatted about it really, like you may not even really fully know either your own full thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Or at least you haven't been challenged enough to like really have like better thoughts on it, because you could get to a better place and a better opinion, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, yeah, these are my favorite things to do. And it's like, there's been so many times we've been on lives and then like you'll say something or I'll say something and then you'll add to it. And then I'll go, I never thought about that.
Exactly.
Like, and then the brains just starts going and you're like, oh yeah, you're right. That does make sense.
And then suddenly you haven't talked about the main character until the last 10 minutes.
For 50 minutes. Okay, so as we all know that Andrew is the king of reading here on BookTube. You know, 200 books, 200 plus books. I don't know how many he finishes. He's also the king of DNFing.
That's true.
But I think you're climbing the ladder. You're trying to about beat him in buying books. I think you're, especially with that last book haul, I think you may have caught him on the year. We'll see if you can keep the pace.
The problem is someone allowed me to be an adult and have my own adult money. And I don't know why they did that.
Mistakes were made.
And especially when you're like, because that's the thing, is you're like, I like paying full price is I like almost never do. But like a deal, then it's like crack cocaine or something. I don't know.
Oh my God.
I like catching like a Barnes and Noble book, and I was really trying, and I had to pay full price, which I was fine with. But like, I might have it here. But I grabbed, there it is, The Silver Blood Promise. I was trying to grab it because a lot of times like a book that just goes to like just comes out at Barnes and Noble, it'll be like 40% off. You know, they're trying to move them or 30% off. So that's what I was waiting for. And I was like, but I had to like have them specially order this because they didn't even have it at all. I was like,
oh, okay. I'm like, that's a heck of a,
how would you not want that on the shelf? I know.
That's a good cover too.
And what's cool is, you know, I claim this a little bit, but like James Logan was a contemporary to some degree, way better than me. But a blogger at the time that I was blogging, Speculative Horizons, he would blog on. And so that's what I'm like, he like is living his dream. Like, I wish I could live my dream like he did. Like, it's so cool because he's been in publishing and editing and all that stuff. And then now has his debut book. I'm like, that's so cool.
That is awesome.
So, yeah, it could happen. You never know what could happen, you know?
So does your wife ever kind of try to rein you in on the book buying? Is she like, what are you doing?
Well, for sure. She's always like, dude, are you kidding me? Like that's why I'm like, audiobook at least is like, she's kind of been like, look, I can acknowledge at least it's not like overtaking our house.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you had the audiobooks the way you on your physical books, you'd have no room in your house.
Yeah. So, and this is like my office, so I slowly just start filling this up, and I'm like, crap, I'm filling up another bookcase. It's bad. So
it's like your wife is like, what? Why did you go to IKEA today? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I need another bookshelf.
Yeah, no, she has a lot of patience, and has learned to like, I'm sorry. Kind of comes with the territory. I mean, and so there's benefits. Like, our kids are all like book addicts now.
That's the next place I was going. Yeah.
I'm like, they all like, it's funny because we read the Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings. Ooh. And I read it with them, and they just like, yeah, that was great. But then to get like, I haven't been able to get them back to like on track with the Two Towers, because they have like since essentially starting Fellowship, which, you know, it took us a good solid year to like read on a night, you know, basis. We read through it.
Kids,
yeah, it took some time, and then So when we like, but by the time we like finished, and then I was like, I'll give it, I'm not gonna like make them like jump to the next one right away. But they like had already developed their own TBR, so they're already feeling the like pressure and stress of managing a TBR, sorry, TBR that they want to read, and so then they're like,
"Oh, that's awesome."
I gotta like, sorry, TPR is in my lawyer world. It's not a good thing.
Like, no, that's not what you want.
TBR, but like, so they're like all stressed. Like, so I'm like, this warms my heart, but I'm sorry to curse you with the stress, and it will never end if you're doing it right. So
I love it. If you're doing it right, you'll always be worried that you're not staying on track. Oh my God. You like, that's the one thing that's got me. Like my wife, had surgery here recently, and that life, it takes precedent over books and everything, right? Just to preface that.
Oh, yeah.
But you're like, oh man, I wanted to get to so many more books. Like I have these books that I need to get to, and blah blah blah, and then it's like, but yeah. So my last 2 weeks, I'm just like, I've read like one book, and I'm like normally I'm like 6 books a month ish.
Yeah, that's healthy.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like 4 if there's a chunker,
Yeah.
and 3 maybe even if there's a chunker. Like it depends, but yeah, if I could get 6, and that's where I was like, we just went on vacation. And it was just me and my wife, and I thought it looked like it was going to rain the whole time. So I try not to like do a video on my channel that's not like, I don't at least think that I can at least accomplish the TBR that I've put out there.
Yeah.
Or like get somewhere close. And I didn't even finish one of the like 5 books. I was like, vacation. These are what I'm bringing just for this vacation. It's going to be great.
I remember you talking about that. Like, I got these I'm bringing.
And then it was like, well, it ended up raining only one day, and we ended up having to like check out Quebec City, and it was really cool. And spent the whole day doing that. So yeah, and like all my days that I was like, I'm gonna be at the pool just reading, it's gonna be great. It like maybe happened for like an hour one day. So
yeah.
It's like,
were you like on the go visiting every landmark?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there was just like these beautiful hikes to like waterfalls. It's just gorgeous up there. And you're just like, all right, these people are doing another hike. And then you just had to like schedule them because it was a Club Med. So we just like schedule like, all right, we'll take this guide and go this way. This is great.
Yeah. I mean, we went to Toronto and it was like that. It was like, we were just on the go all day long, every day that we were up there, like just seeing new stuff. And
I had to eat poutine, like all of it, and maple syrup on everything. So
you know what's crazy? I don't know about Quebec, right? Is that French? That's the French.
It's the French part. And it really, like, I thought there'd be like a lot more. And I'm like, I'm narcissistic American here. Like, but it was like all French. And I was like, okay, good on you guys. I thought this would there would be more.
Yeah. See, we had the opposite experience going to Toronto. When we went through the border, it was like the most Canadian lady you've ever seen, hey, all the stuff. When we got into Canada on the way there and in Toronto, like no accents at all.
Come on.
We're like the quintessential like Americans. We're like, shucky darn, we wanted to hear all the Canadian accents. I'm like, where are they at?
Oh man.
But yeah,
and I don't speak French, so I don't know the Canadian accent of French that they have.
Yeah. Oh, oui, oui. Yeah. You thought I was a French bulldog?
Oui, oui, eh?
The only French I know is from Super Troopers. That's all I got. That's all I got.
And the only Canadian I know is from Strange Brew. So.
Oh man, but so like when I first, and I don't know how you felt when you first started booktube, but like when I first started booktube, I was like super serious about my TBRs. Like if I told people I was reading this, it's like I felt bad if I didn't get to a book, so I would just be like. And now I do TBR videos every once in a while. It's more like if I like, this is what's coming up on the channel. I think that way it kind of like relieves some stress from me, and I got a lot of the bigger series kind of out of the way. So it's like, I don't know if that was the kind of the same for you, or if you've kind of,
Yeah.
or if you're still kind of in that, like, if I tell people I'll feel bad if I don't.
Same, yeah. I kind of almost like avoided them at first because I was just like, I'm too much of a mood reader for this. But I've kind of come to, I call them MBRs a lot of times, and like maybe
Yeah.
read, and then so I do kind of go with a yeah, and then I like to do an end of the year, like for the next year, kind of like here's my
Yeah.
CBR for the whole year, and then but then I also learned like, okay, keep it down to like maybe 20 books, like don't get too crazy.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's something I just started. I think like last year was the like coming into the year. These are like a big MBR. You know, like these are books that are on my radar. I want to get to, and I think that's kind of how I'm going to go from now on.
And
Is
then
like,
I do a bookshelf on Goodreads that I put them all in, like I label them all, and then so I can kind of keep track. It's my
oh,
easy way of
see that's
keeping track of it.
yeah, I know there are people who like have their like everything they do, they log it into Goodreads, and I'm like, I wish I had the motivation to do that because it would be awesome. Because I'm a stats guy, I would love it, but I just can't get myself to like put it all in there every time I finish a book or every time I want to read a book.
I wish I could like review them all, but like, so I don't get to that like level, but I do like for my own, I have to track my stats or I'll like forget what I've read or whatever. And then also like I do end of the month or end of the year or whatever. Like I'm always like, here's how many books I read, you know?
Yeah. Well, and when I first started, I would review almost every book that I read. So like 2 years ago, I read 64 books and I reviewed like 61 of them. And I
Wow,
was like,
that's amazing.
I was getting to the point where I'm like, well, there's a couple of things. It's like I always say like book reviews are like the backbone of your channel, but also it's like they can hinder your channel in ways too. Like if you're just reading a random book that like is not a big New York Times bestseller and it's like 10 years old, it's like, yeah, you might get like 20, 40 views on it, and you're just like, oh, you know. But if I review Lee Bardugo's newest book, I get 1,300 views. You know? It's like,
exactly.
you know,
So true.
so sometimes you was like, man, I really want to review this book, but maybe sometimes you like, I know you kind of do stuff where you kind of bunch it together, and that's probably a smarter way to go about it. So you can.
It does about the same.
You're like, so yeah, they're about this.
No, because that's the thing. Like the last like review, like pure review that I had that kind of blew, like did okay, like you said, like 1,300 views was like Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, yeah, that was a big one for you. I
But
remember
most, that. Yeah, but like, and it was funny because it like at first I like kind of was just like, you know, it was like a pretty normal review, and then all of a sudden it's something picked it up and it like started going more. So I'm like some algorithm somewhere or somebody shared it somewhere, and it's like, okay, good, all right. It is hard. It is. I do feel the same way that a review is like, what else is this? It's like these are kind of review channels. Like, what else are we doing? Even if you're doing a list, you're still like talking about the book.
You review why you put it in that list. So you got to give a little mini review when you're doing your top 10s or whatever.
Exactly. But you're right. As far as like the algorithm doesn't love them. They're not algorithm friendly. That's for sure. But I also like, I felt like, and I've tried to renew my like doing more reviews, renew my like, you know, motivation to like get to those reviews a little bit better. Like I said, if I could do them as like an extra video, right? Like that would be ideal. But anyway,
well,
instead of just like replacing something, because it's the problem I get to is just like the editing part. And I need to just be like, look, man, just go through them, just hammer, like don't like I don't know. I've gotten like, I don't know, lazy in my like video. When I do a video, I'll like be like, you know, and I like have to cut out a ton of stuff when it's like, just try to like one shot it and go.
Yeah, that's me. Like I don't like, I've got one, and lucky, like the more you do it, right? And that's, I guess that would be another good thing about doing so many reviews, so many videos. When I first started, like my videos have slowed down substantially,
right?
But like doing so many videos, I got kind of better at being able to do those one shots where I only had, unless like if a freaking bird flies and hits my window or something like that, but I try not to do too much editing, and because like, yeah, it can be time consuming, especially if you're trying to, because like as you go on, you want to get better and fancier and stuff. So you're like, all right, I'm gonna start putting these cut videos in, and then put some digital stuff in, and you're like, and like every single thing you do, that adds another 2-3 minutes on to your editing, and you're like, oh man. And then
like that, like 5 seconds,
yeah, for that little 5-second clip, you're just like, yeah, it took me 3 minutes to line it up and cut it and everything. And and I can understand where like some people don't like doing the review videos anymore, because like, especially if you put a lot of work into it, and then it just you get like 60-70 views, you're like, man, I kind of felt like
I know, right?
So, but and it's funny,
and
like
you're like, at the same time, you're like, I don't want to like poo 60-70 views, because you're like, oh, hey, like,
but like as you get more subscribers, you like when I first started, like my level has changed a little bit to what I'm disappointed in. Like like when you first start, you're like, I got 20 views. What? 20 people watched my video? Like who wants to watch my video?
I know, like crazy.
Yeah. But then it was like,
do you understand that? No, those are mine.
Yeah. But then like as you get more, now it's like, all right, if I get below 50, I'm disappointed. And then it's like,
so true.
And now it's like you're at 100. But like you said, sometimes the algorithm will just catch you. Like I got lucky that I was already in the process of reading and reviewing all of Song of Ice and Fire when the whole George R.R. Martin thing blew up again, where it's like, oh, he's only written like 10 pages in a year or whatever, that when that big thing hit. And then all of my videos for the Game of Thrones, I had like 3 of them out, and they all started to climb up. And then I was like, and then you're like, you kind of get to that thing when you're like, okay, well, now I know what people are wanting to do right now. So then you make a couple of those videos, and you're like, oh, 2,000 views. This is the best thing I've ever seen. Well,
and then you go on to something else, and you're like, oh,
it was George. It was George that was making the videos. Okay. Well, and then like I got lucky again with Patrick Rothfuss. Like I did a Patrick Rothfuss video, That's awesome. And then like the next day, he has the whole like everybody's mad at him again because he didn't I know you've done several videos talking about this, where he didn't just like try to gloss over not you gave us $300,000 and I still haven't done anything. Right. I just got lucky that I put that out like a day before it happened, and then it's like 2,000 views for that. But you just can't. Sometimes you just get lucky, and then like. Last week I did a video for like top 5 like worst book ones, and it took off. And then I was like, oh, okay. And I tried to do like the opposite, and it's like,
so funny.
I was like, how? It's basically the same video, just more.
True. Oh, I know. It's so hard I know. That's where I'm like, and part of it too is I've kind of like, okay, I can just accept the fact that I'm either going to be late or just lucky. It's okay. Like, there's only going to be those 2 things that happen. And hopefully I'll catch something, or sometimes I can be like on the cusp and just, get something out. Cause I do try, if there is some big bit of news, if I can film something and like get it out, that's
you jumped on that pretty quick.
So rare. Cause like I said, I have 4 kids and they're busy, and I'm their taxi service a lot of times. My wife is more so. And I don't know how she does it all, because I like go back to work and I'm like, let's go back to my stressful job where it's so much easier.
People like kids like, sometimes you're like, it's just, it's kids, it's, but then like there are positives and negatives too. It's like, if you're dealing with your kids, it's crazy stressful, but it's fun sometimes.
Exactly.
Then, but then like with your work, it's like, it's stressful, but it's not stressful in the same way. Like,
it's stressful.
You're not trying to make sure that people don't hurt themselves all day long.
It's stressful, and like I know how to control it and deal with it.
Oh man. So One try to like I could just keep talking to you for hours, man.
Man, this is great.
But like,
so, I'll come back on.
Yeah, dude, we're
You're
gonna.
not sick of me yet. This is great.
Yeah, we're gonna be back on here for something. Don't worry about it.
I need to pull you. I need to pull you to my channel. I need to get like
100%, 100%.
If you're good.
So, like, what do you got going on? Are you on some other channels coming up, or you got any video ideas you want to throw out here?
Yeah, so Fantasy Files will actually be on in like 30 minutes or so.
Nice.
So I was like, I got to prepare for that. I just finished Harry Potter. It's just on Harry Potter 2, Chamber of Secrets. And I like literally finished it 5 minutes before I got on here. So I was like blazing. I'm doing a Lions of Al Rassan by Guy Gavra K read along. That's been with Overly Average Ben, Grace Dion, and Murphy Napier. You probably don't know any of those people. And so that's been fun. Like
channels.
It's been like a cool like book club that we kind of just randomly started from being all fans of Lies of Locke Lamora, and so that's kind of one that's been like slightly ongoing, and so that's been fun. Anyway, to do we're in the middle of like reading a book, so it's nothing is scheduled there, but I am trying to trying to get to where I can put more stuff out, get like better, more streamlined. Just it's always like that improvement. I would like to improve.
Yeah.
Maybe someday get better at editing, but I'm like, maybe just get to a place where I can hire somebody. Might be the most
best, right?
Right. So my son's
Library of the Viking.
Yeah, I know.
He jumped on that quick. He was like, as soon as he could afford to have somebody edit, I'm like, I would love to do that eventually.
Oh yeah, if you could just crank out videos and just like, here you go. I mean, that just it all works better. But my son has even like offered to like, hey, do some editing. So I'm like, hey, maybe that's a good, because I've loved like part of it is just I would love to do stuff with the family, get them involved, but it's like the internet's weird. He's 13, almost 14.
Okay, so. Yeah, dude, that would be a great skill for him to have. If he wants to, if he's interested in that kind of stuff, that can get him into some college and some internships and stuff. Like, hey, I've been editing my dad's YouTube videos for 4 years or whatever it is.
That's what I was like, man, that's cool. I wasn't even thinking about that. That's a great idea. And like, so I think that was cool. And then because he's right now he's programming his own Roblox game. And he's having like a blast, and he was showing
better than I could do.
And what's funny, so because he's a huge Will White Unsold Cradle series fan. He'd read through it like 5 times or something like that. I don't know.
It's good.
He's making he's doing that. He's like making that into Roblox. Like,
get out of here.
Like the whole because it's like a game, right? All it is like you're leveling up. And so that's what he's trying to do is like Madra and all this stuff. And he was just showing it to me yesterday, and I was like, this is so cool. How do you do this?
Yeah, you should do it. You should. I'll tell you what, the Cradle fans on like Reddit and Facebook are freaking voracious. Like I think they might even like now when the new Dresden book comes out, that's going to be a different story. But like for just right now, I would say that the Cradle fans are probably the most like eat up anything you put out there by them.
Yeah.
So dude, you could do that. You could like show your son like making the game, and like they would eat that up.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And so my son even started his own YouTube channel on like Minecraft and stuff like that. And so that's where it is anyway. So that's fun. Just do stuff like. Part of this was just like do stuff that you are afraid of, do stuff that challenges you, like do stuff that puts you out of your comfort zone. I used to be so awkward in front of a camera. And what's funny is doing this actually, like a local news like team contacted me about because I do family law. They're like some new law, and then so they came and interviewed me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was like the most natural thing in the world because I'm used to being in front of a camera. Like it was so weird before because I'd be like clam up and just
yes.
I don't know, just like couldn't think while I'm on being filmed. I still can't think while I'm being filmed, but I can talk at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Who like just turn the brain off, and then that's like me when it's Spanish in high school. Like I would black out anytime they told me to stand up and oh, just stand up and read the book. And like, I'd sit back down and be like, what happened, guys? They're like, you did really good. Did I? I spoke Spanish? Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Oh my God. All right. Well, man, thank you. It was awesome having you on here, Bryce. Like we, do this more. I think AR Woodham's got me doing a indie readathon coming up here in August.
Yes.
I might have to bring you in on the team.
Okay, I'm in. I did that last year, and I was a terrible team leader. So you cannot do worse than I did.
Oh my God! Yeah, I think this will only be the second readathon I've done for for people. I was on did an Andrew's thing.
Oh,
I did good, but the team got slaughtered. So like, that was still fun though.
Those are fun. It gets me like reading a whole ton of different stuff. Usually because I'm like, what can fit into like the most amount of
the categories and stuff. I love that. Like I love playing games and being competitive.
I know. And what's funny is it's reading, competitive reading. That's hilarious, but it's awesome.
You like reading? I like being competitive. Let's put it together, and I'll try not to yell at people. But thank you, everybody who watched this, and if you're going to watch it on the replay, appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to Bryce. He's going to give you all the news and all the updates. And if you need to know stuff about law, he's your man.